I'm personally enjoying this review because you seem almost like bewildered that we're reviewing this album.
I am. I really, and the thing too is like, we know who he is, like peripherally, but it's like no one was checking for this project. Like even the checking for this project is out of nowhere, and it's like we can try and be nice about it and be like, okay, the album's decent, so it's not as bad. But if we're being real, even checking for this project was out of nowhere. So it's like. Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is another episode of Album Mode. We review a new album every single week. We look at the lyrics, the production, the overall aesthetic of the album, and how that album fits into the context of that artist's career. For everyone watching on YouTube, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and of course, leave us a comment. Let us know how wrong we always are. My name is Adriel Smiley, a.k.a. AdrielSmiley.com, a.k.a. Adriel Smiley Official, a.k.a. The Godfather, and we're here with His Royal Highness, a.k.a. The Bunny, a.k.a. No Longer a Munch, a.k.a. The Champion, King Grant.
Welcome back, everybody. Album Mode. This time we're reviewing SahBabii. Is it SahBabii or SahBabii?
I think it's SahBabii, but in the comments, you'll, of course, let us know if we're wrong.
We're doing SahBabii's latest album, Saaheem. Has been, I would say, on my radar for a little bit, just like the upcoming release of it. So we're doing Saaheem, SahBabii. I think that this is something even, I would say, hip-hop heads are looking forward to. Looking forward to has come up a little bit. So we're here reviewing it. Adriel, how did you feel about the lead-up?
I think two things to start with. This is probably the smallest artist we've ever reviewed.
Yeah.
700,000 monthly listeners. I don't think we've reviewed anyone at less than 1 million before. So I'd say this is pretty unique. And then as well, I think I've been kind of confused as to how we got here.
Okay.
Because, I remember SahBabii from, I think it was 2017, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
He had that song, Pull Up With the Stick.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty big, early internet hit, I would say, of that SoundCloud era. It wasn't from SoundCloud, but that was kind of the sound of that era. And it was unofficially remixed by a bunch of artists when this was still a thing that was happening. That doesn't happen as much anymore unless your name is DaBaby. But the unofficial remix that kind of made him stand out to me was Wiz did a remix called Pull Up With the Zip. And there was rumors of Drake and Thug hopping on an official remix. I don't think that ever actually happened. But that was, the beginning of his career for me. And I basically forgot he existed until now. So to see his name come up, I was like, okay, he's still employed. I'm happy for him. But you got to tell me this, because I'm not sure myself. What has been happening over the past few years that makes everyone excited now? Or is it just one of those things where enough blogs post you and everyone starts hearing about it? Because I can't tell you a song he's made in between then and now.
I think that's what it came up to, because I was just browsing through releases that came out, monitoring the web as I do. And first of all, it caught my eye because I was like, holy shit, he's still making music.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just did some cursory browsing on the interwebs, and I was like, people are actually talking about it. Right? So then I'm like, okay, let me see if we actually review this. I feel like it would be interesting to review, because I'm like, SahBabii is like one of those artists that, like you said, popped in the early 10s or mid 10s.
Yeah, mid 10s.
But it's still dropping shit. So I was legitimately curious. I'm like, what does it sound like?
Yeah, I didn't expect much different. I expected to sound basically like what it does sound, which is similar to how music has always sounded. Mm-hmm. But I think this is one that was very dubious to me, because I looked online, not really any new interviews in the past few months, which, an artist like him would usually do to kind of push the project.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did see was a lot of videos from content creators asking, why are we even listening to this?
Yes.
And I think that is part of why I think this is just one of those where you see it posted on blogs enough, it feels like it has a bigger buzz. Mm-hmm. Because I think there's a lot of artists, kind of his ilk, who are like that, where blogs and pages will post them enough times that it makes them look like they're a bigger artist than they are. Mm-hmm. Lil Uzi, who reviewed last week, was one of those artists who, even if you don't listen to him, you're seeing whatever new chain he got or whatever he's up to being posted, whether you're a fan or not. And I think this is one of those situations, and I want to see if I'm wrong. Okay. So in the comments, all the diehard SahBabii fans, let me know, show up. But I don't know any diehard fans. And I was saying this to Chris before you showed up. That is sometimes my measure of how popular an artist actually is. Because we all have our own little ecosystem that we're in on the internet. Just because someone's not in your ecosystem doesn't mean that they're not very popular. We talked about this with A$AP Ferg, a few months back. And, you're saying I haven't seen him in a long time. And I said, I see him on my timeline almost too often without music coming out. And
True.
I think that something I always have, paid attention to is, where are your diehard fans? I don't need to know everyone knows you, but the fans I do know, how much of a fan are they? Do we just know who you are and listen to your music? Or are they diehards? And I've never met anyone who's even a casual, let alone a diehard. So I'm curious to see how wrong or right I am about this.
Yeah.
But this feels like one of those situations where kind of artificially pushed to the top and artificially pushed to album mode.
Okay. Wow. That's a hot, I think that's a hot topic, a hot one coming from you, because I'm even at the point I'm like, okay, so why are we reviewing it? We could have not been reviewing this. You said that we could have been reviewing something else. What would you have wanted to review instead of this?
I think I would have even gone back. I think West Side Gun, his album, people have been talking about online. So I still haven't heard it myself, but every time I open my TikTok, someone's talking about it. And then IDK or A$AP Ferg, I actually like those two artists that I actually want to do a review on them because we haven't reviewed any of them.
Yeah, maybe we should do solos.
So maybe those would be good. But this question, I feel like we can move quickly through this into the production.
Yeah.
How many songs do you have saved? Like how many liked songs do you have for SahBabii?
From this album?
Just no, in general.
In general, I think I'm at like 10, 15.
Okay.
So
Diehard.
I wouldn't consider myself a diehard. SahBabii isn't the least amount of listeners before. Remember the R&B album that we did of the woman that was like in the forest, something like that, City in the Forest?
Umi?
Yeah.
I don't know what
I think Umi had less, at least when we were reviewing her.
Umi's at 2.3 million now, but I would argue that Umi was never at less because Umi has, 3 or 4 songs over 100 million streams. That would be different, huge for SahBabii. So I think, definitely the least we've ever had. I have 3 songs saved.
Okay.
3 songs liked. I think with this project, the main thing to me was expectations.
Okay.
And what he represents to me is I kind of think an idea of what the new school sounds like, because all over this project, there's a lot of kind of things that sound similar to other people. There's a couple times where it reminds me of Uzi on here. More than a few times it reminds me of Young Thug on here. And I think this is interesting because he's of this ilk of artist who we can go ahead and spoil it. The lyrics are not why we're here. The lyrics, the delivery, not why we're here. And why I think this kind of subgenre of hip-hop is so interesting because, they have such defenders. Once hip-hop made that split between old school and new school, the new school defenders stood tall, hand held high. And why I mentioned that is because the new school even say about their own artists, the lyrics are not important. It's the vibe. The vibe is the production. Yep. And these producers never get their credit on this type of album. And so I think it's so funny that we're defending the artists, but also saying we're here for the production. And I think this album is the epitome of that because that's what I'm here for. And when I talk about expectations, I expected loops. I expected every song to be a loop. I didn't expect no Tyler Creator chords over here. I didn't expect no different bridge.
Yeah.
I expected loops on all of these. Roll With Me was an early favorite of mine.
Yep.
Those rolling keys kind of create this melody that just has you bouncing on its own. But there's a lot of production on here that I like.
Yeah, me too. I think the production is stellar, actually. I actually think the production is really good. I think that songs like Roll With Me or even Belt Boys.
Yeah, Belt Boys is good too.
Belt Boys is a fun song. I think that...
What's a belt boy? Because I have it written down here. What is a belt boy?
I'm not sure.
This is your boy. Let me know.
First of all, not my boy. This is not my boy. My boy, Yeet.
Okay.
Tyler, the Creator.
Okay.
Those are my boys, okay? But I think I like Bell Boys a lot. I think that it's a fun I think the best way to describe the production on this album is like it's fun. It's like very airy.
Yes.
Right? Very floaty. Not floaty, airy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because there's even the song like Vikings, which I love. I love his production, where it's very airy and it's got like that weird synth in the background, that like sound, right? So there's a lot of space that allows for SahBabii to fill in. It's funny that you mentioned like he sounds like artists like Young Thug or Uzi, which I don't get the Uzi thing, but to each their own. To me, I think he reminds me of Young Nudy a lot.
Anybody young.
All the youngs and lils.
Yeah, all the youngs and lils.
All the youngs and lils. But yeah, I think that this production kind of reminds me of like Anyways by Young Nudy, and the one before that. Even Slime Air to a degree, which is funny because Slime Air 2 is coming out.
Yeah, I was gonna say Slime Air 2 is on the way. I think the difference with this production is it's a little less punchy.
Yes.
And songs like Viking, they really kind of remind me of the 2009 to 2013 Lex Luthor era of hip hop. And once that transitioned into the Cardo Got Wings era, it's like those two had a baby. Like Lex Luthor production mixed with Cardo Got Wings production, you get a lot of what this project is. Lost All My Feelings, that bass line, that is the one that I'm like, okay, we got something here. But I think that like that's the song I think vocally where it reminds me of Young Thug the most.
Right.
And I really like that beat, but you know, one of my favorite Young Thug songs is one of his most nonsensical. Okay, he's saying nothing on this song. It's called Daddy's Birthday, and he's just floating the way Young Thug does. He's rapping about never read a book, rapping about his shorties, going in 10 different directions at once.
Right.
But he's just floating in such a way, it's like only he can do this. That's not on here. That kind of floating is not on this project at all. And why it stands out so much to me is, you're right, we've named a bunch of Lils and Youngs that he sounds like. Okay, so already we're saying it's not as original as it could be. But I think why it stands out is these beats have something to them.
Yeah.
And a song like Lost All My Feelings is like, even someone like Gunna, if Gunna and Young Nudy had that song together, this could be a huge track. So I think that's my issue, is that there's the ingredients of, okay, like you fit, you know, you're dribbling the ball the right way, the way everyone else dribbles the ball.
Right.
But do you have the finishing moves? Not really. And so I think the potential is there with the production, but I think the vocal delivery makes everything fall flat.
Really? Because I'm like, when I listen to Sylvan Road Riding Down Dill, first of all, try and say that 4 times in a row.
Impossible.
I think that is probably the closest his music comes to like the vocals and the production like smashing together and actually sounding like really good.
Close.
Because I think that like that part in the production kind of sets a good base for the rest of his rapping, which really, this is a song that's like, this is like if Young Thug met Young Nudy at the same time, where I think the flow is really, I think his flows are really good. Like I think his flows are really good, really solid. Like it's like da 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 da. So it already has the flow within itself. Already has like a musicality to it. Even though that I'm like, when I'm like reading the lyrics, I'm like, this is not that impressive. But yeah, I think that's one of those songs where it does lick up like really well. And I think the production is probably the main force, but I do think his flow is really good on it. It's like, am I really looking forward to like deep songwriting when it comes to him and his music? Not really. So I'm getting.
What about your songwriting?
What about
what about just songwriting?
what about just songwriting? It's questionable.
Because you know what it reminds me? It's like when someone is vegan and they have imitation meat.
Yeah.
It's like, this is technically the texture it's supposed to be. which I feel like that's what these songs are.
Yes.
It's technically the texture in terms of the flows, using the voice, even the beats and how they mix. But it's kind of like there's someone doing this better dropping in 3 days, or there's someone doing this better with 100 songs out.
And they just came out of jail.
Free thug. So I think that is the biggest thing here is it feels a lot like imitation, but not in the good way. And I think that is where the production almost can't save it, because it's hard to ignore the vocals on this. Even when the flows are good and you're like, okay, we got something here. Trying to like rock with it, it's almost like you feel yourself dumbing yourself down. It's like, I'm trying too hard to rock with this. So like, this should be more effortless. The beat is like, you talk about Sylvan Road riding down Dill. That part that you mentioned is hypnotic.
Yeah.
Like that alone, I might start rapping. So the fact that at certain points the vocals become distracting, and maybe that's just me, I think that is what like kind of ruined this album for me after a couple listens, because first listen, I loved so many beats on here that I was just bobbing. I was like, okay, we got something. And then it's like, stop talking, man. You're ruining it. Don't kill me. The song was good before you came in. And so I think when we talk about production, it's like the imitation part of it is really what hurts it, because if it was someone who we mentioned Every Young, Every Lil in reference to him, if his voice and his delivery was different, but still mostly saucy, less lyrical, then it might be, okay, you have your own delivery over here. His delivery is very mimicky of a Nudy, a Thug, an Uzi at times. So it's like, for me, that's actually the problem. It's not that it's this subgenre called trap. It's that you're super copying these people who we're well aware of. You're not copying somebody low key. Yeah. So that I think is a big issue.
Yeah, I think so. I think I get that perspective. I think for me, this album is like a lot of beats that I'm like, you would not see Young Thug doing very frequently. And I think that is the separator for me, is that this like airy and ethereal style of production is not really what Young Thug really does. Maybe on
one, like I feel like a couple songs an album he'll do it, but if it's a 20-song album,
no, he's not.
That's
doing that.
about it. Like 2 or 3 songs at tops.
Exactly, and I think that's maybe for me like the strain where I'm able to like pull from, where I'm like, this is giving me more of I would say this is giving me more of like a Young Thug experience, but in a production style that he doesn't. Like, he just leaves it on the cutting room floor. And I think that is what's really drawing me in when it comes to the songs overall.
I like this production style maybe better than some of Young Thug's production.
Me too.
Because I said, like, this is almost, like, adjacent to, but before the Taylor Alderdice Wiz Khalifa era, where Cardo got wings, when it was, like, almost trap Wiz. And that's why I think about Wiz when Wiz did pull up with the zip. Because this is this is like trap Wiz production. There's like the traditional Wiz production. We think of Cushion Orange Juice, some Rolling Papers, but there was a trap, version of Wiz Khalifa, 28 grams, Cabin Fever 1 and 2. This feels a lot like that. And I really like that production. So I think, to me, this production probably is better than some of the actual other trap albums that we've done over this year.
I agree.
And I think like that's what makes it more of a letdown, is because in trap, we spend so much time defending these guys and talking about, who cares about lyrics? Stop worrying about lyrics. It's not about that. But we don't give the producers their credit when we're coming to these songs for the producers.
True.
So I think that in this case, if I'm talking about him as an artist, I give you credit for choosing these beats, but you're the worst part of most of these songs. Yeah. And I can't just not mention that.
Yeah, so shout out to the producers doing the Lord's work in a artist. I mean, doing it for somebody like SahBabii to be able to, I would credit his beat selection.
Yeah,
it also
great beat selection.
Yeah, it takes a
like Save It For Me, Baby, Workin'. Like I like those two a lot too.
Yeah, Belt Boys, Viking. We mentioned Rolling With Me. Even Anaconda Living, I like. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, yo, we just go down the list. A lot of
good beats.
Yeah, we're going down the list, and I'm really enjoying it. How do you feel about?
You know lyrics?
Well, I guess like his lyrics and like vocals.
No, we can skip it.
You're just giving
we can skip his lyrics. Like I think there's a couple songs where I really tried to, look at him saying something deeper.
Mhm.
1095 Osborne Street, I think, is a clear standout of him trying to say something in his lyrics. And it's funny, I saw some comments on Genius and on YouTube of people saying, like, this song made me cry. Beautiful song. I had a tear in my eye listening to this.
Okay.
And I was like, what is your musical world like that this is what makes you cry? And so I said, you know what? Let me not be judgmental. Like, let me tap in.
Yeah.
I tapped all the way out. So we can talk about what this means for his career and the cover.
Wait, well, I actually have things to say about his like flow and stuff. I think that in like All the Way, where he's in this section where he's like new bit. This is a section. This is verse 2 of All the Way, according to SahBabii. The verse goes as, new bitch, that's a new set on my lips, new year on all of the whips, new Glock, Gen 5 on the kit, blue cheese, that's a new flavor chip, rap snacks, bitch, I need me a deal, same dick, but the new pissy ill, I don't know how that loose pussy feel, X block, bitch, I'm chasing a meal. I think that his flow in that section, it'll be better, obviously, in the audio version when we get to clip in that section. But that like 1, 2, and then like ratatata at the end, I think is like a cool flow. His lyrics, I mean, money, hoes, and clothes, right? So it's not something that I haven't heard before. I would say that I've heard it in different ways. But this is very interesting. Like I thought the flow was interesting, right? I think his flow is interesting. His hooks on a song like Belt Boys, sorry. Love that hook. Even though it's repetitive, I'm not a person that hates repetitive. Again, I love beats and music. Playboy Cardi. Daft Punk.
Yeah.
So I think that, the vocals on that, like it almost like emanates out of him. Like it's like, Belt Boys, but you can, I swear it feels like it starts lower.
Yes.
And then they actually like slide the volume up every time it repeats it. So I think that hook is good. I think maybe in the rest of the album, the hooks are repetitive, like one word or like one line hooks, like on Anaconda or even on Film.
Yeah.
And that's where like, because they don't have the same effect of Belt Boys, that it's like it gets repetitive in a bad way where I'm like, okay, bro, like get to the next thing. So I think that the songwriting is okay. It's okay, right? Because I'm like, okay, there's things happening with the flows, there's things happening with some of the hooks and stuff like that. But obviously the lyrics are not something to write home about, clearly.
Yeah, I think as well, he does a good job sometimes of kind of switching up his cadence, and he has multiple voices on this project.
Yeah,
that I think helps it in a sense, because I think if it was one voice throughout this whole entire project, it would be like, okay, like we really got to switch it up. I think, you could hear some of these songs back to back and not know it's the same guy. True. And I got to give him credit for that. But I think the main issue with this project as a whole, because I think as a whole project, it suffers more than the songs do it individually. Okay. But I think some of the songs individually, I will actually listen to again, put in playlists, will actually make the rotation. But as a whole, I think he's kind of, hurt in terms of what's came before him.
Yeah, he's lacking identity.
Yeah, and I think like when you talk about what this means for his career and just him as an artist going forward, is like he kind of will always be the imitation meat in a sense, because of what's come before him. Because I do think in a vacuum, he's not quote unquote terrible.
Right. But
I think we've seen other artists, with this style do this thing and kind of like blow our minds in different ways, so we can't like make the bar so low just for him of like, oh my God, he's rhyming. Like, which I know, but I think that's a lot of how people treat this subgenre of hip hop of like, he's rhyming. The flow is crazy. It's like, we've seen this style taken to higher heights. And I think that's what really hurts him in this. So, but for his career, I think this is actually a plus.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think that there's a whole group of people who do not have the palette that I have and love this album. And I'm not throwing any shade. Also,
There's a little bit of shade. There's a little shade.
Your body, your choice, of course. But
shade.
I do foresee people loving this project
Mm-hmm.
and listening to it over and over again who don't have the palette that I have.
Yeah, I think that is good for his career because the vibes are crazy. Like
Mhm.
very good vibes.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna make a ton of playlists.
Yeah.
Like I think that this is one of the more playlistable albums that we've ever done. And that's a good and a bad thing because there's artists that we've done where I'm like, where are you gonna put Sampha's music in a playlist?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe in your like super relaxing Sunday playlist, but it's not making many others. And that's one of the best albums that's come out in the best like 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? This album, I'm like, I feel like I could slide a ton of these songs into a playlist.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, as a whole together, as like a compendium, I'm like, right? I'm like, like I think that its cohesiveness. It's also like really cohesive too.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a good first career because I think he's serving his base.
Mm-hmm.
Like the people who like this sound, this is what they want to hear. Like, you know, it's funny.
You don't like vibes?
No. Well, I think it's a different type of vibe. That's what I think is why I'm saying his base is. I sent this album to a couple of people. They did not call it vibes.
Okay.
And I think, like, again, to a certain person with a certain palette, this is vibes to you.
What did they say? I'm curious.
They just said not for me. And I just understand what that meant. But like, I think Sampha actually fits more playlist because he has, slower songs, and then he has songs that have drums that can go in maybe like an R&B upbeat playlist, and then he has songs that are straight dance songs.
Yes, he does.
This is all trap. Like maybe you have 10 trap playlists, and he can go in all of those. But if you're someone who listens to something other than trap,
yeah,
he can't go in those other playlists.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is where in a sense, I'm not asking for more from him because I don't see more from him.
Okay.
5 years from now, 10 years from now, if he has one song on his album that's not a trap song, I'll be surprised. So I think this kind of helps cement him in the genre that he plans to stay in. So okay. I think that's a plus because it feels like that was the intention with this project.
Yeah. Okay. Is it a no skips? Is it a no skips? It's kind of a no skips though.
It's not a no skips, but it's something.
I feel like for me it's a no skips because I feel like there's never a time where I want to this song, like I need to skip it or I need to lift the
Yeah, it's not as aggressive as like I need to skip this song.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like if I'm listening passively, it's a no skips.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a 2 minutes where I try and clock in,
mm-hmm.
I might go to the song that I like more.
Yeah.
So in that way I can't give it a no skips.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the cover?
I think the cover is suspect. The cover is suspect. I mean, you can be a bare-chested man on your cover, but I just feel like it's like a weird Photoshop. Like I could there's like a fuzz around him
mm-hmm.
in a way that is not an aura. It's like somebody just kind of like sniffed him out of another picture in Photoshop and put him on the cover.
He always has weird covers.
Yeah.
Sorry to break it to you. Like, this is what he does. Like, he has not had a cover. Again, maybe his mixtape he made in high school had a normal cover, but the most normal cover he has is Do It for Demon in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, every single cover he's had has been some kind of weird. So this is almost more normal in terms of his history of covers.
Right.
I actually like it because I think that's why we're here. I think the cover is part of the reason why we're even reviewing this album in the first place. Like,
wait, what do you mean by that?
Like the cover being posted, I think helped people be aware of it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's memorable. It stands out with the color. It's him with his shirt off. I don't think people knew what he looked like for real without this cover.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you said his name, someone's like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly who that is." Like, I don't think that was the case.
I'm personally enjoying this review because you seem almost like bewildered that we're reviewing this album.
I am. I really, and the thing too is like, we know who he is, like peripherally, but it's like no one was checking for this project. Like even the checking for this project is out of nowhere, and it's like we can try and be nice about it and be like, okay, the album's decent, so it's not as bad.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're being real, even checking for this project was out of nowhere. So it's like, I'm happy for him. I'm sure he's able to feed his family a lot more from this past year. But it's like let's just be real about it. Like You were not checking for this project. Like,
oh my God.
Like at the start of the year, if I said who you checking for to drop music, you would not have named him. Like,
okay.
tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Okay. So with that, please unveil your score for SahBabii Saaheem.
SahBabii Saaheem. This is a 4.5.
Oh, wow.
out of 10 for me.
Wow.
I want to give this a higher score, but I think the lack of uniqueness on this project just really stops me from doing that. Because I really like the production on here.
Yeah, the production.
Like
really
there's definitely songs that are gonna make like my gym playlist, which is my most listened to playlist.
Okay. So let me stop you right there.
Mm-hmm.
So over the past couple of years, I have been down on Gunna.
Okay.
Because I'm like, so, it's kind of generic, heard it before, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, I rate Gunna pretty poorly.
Mm-hmm.
But you've turned the corner on Gunna.
Yep.
For pretty much the same reason. You're like, I know what it's gonna be like. Like I know what to expect from this guy.
Gunna's way better than him, but I know
what's going on. The lyrics are not the point. Blah blah blah. It's more about the flows, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've somehow ticked up on Gunna. So now we're here with SahBabii, where you're like, I know what it's gonna be like. It's gonna make a ton of playlists for me. It's gonna be on my gym playlist, which is my most listened to playlist. Yep. But you're somehow like, it's a 4.5 or 4 out of 10.
This is album mode. Okay. As an album, nothing here for this album to be rated higher than a 4.5 for me personally. Okay. I think there are songs on here that will make a playlist for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think in terms of a full body of work, again, the cloth that I'm cut from in terms of what an album is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. I would not show this album to someone in terms of example of a good hip hop album. Okay. Even a good trap album. Now there are songs, but I think the imitation is working in his favor. And when imitation is your best skill, that's not a good album to me. Okay. So for me, it's a 4.5. And I think that in some world, it's way higher because I love the production on this album so much.
Yeah, it's really good.
But I think why I can't give it more than a 4.5 is the production I love on here, I've heard other places. We named 3 different eras that have production like this that we can go back and listen to. So I think I can go back and listen to the same kind of production that I like with someone who's rapping better or making better songs or a voice I like better. So I think if this was just him doing this and, I haven't heard this production from anyone else and then I think he'd be a 6, somewhere 6.5. But I think the fact that even the production that I like the best is also imitation production, it's like 4.5 is the best place for you. Okay. So for me, SahBabii Saaheem is a 6 out of 10. Wow.
It's a 6 out of 10, maybe even a 6.5. I think the production is really good, like really good. And we've been lauding it this entire review. I think that his hooks are good. Good and bad. There are times where the repetition is really good. I think his vocals are solid. I do think that there's a little too much Young Thug.
Yeah,
that's happening, and the young Nudy is ever present. I never really thought I would come into an artist where I'm like, oh, this person reminds me of Young Nudy. Like that's very rare.
That what's funny? I love Young Nudy, but that's not a compliment here.
Wait, what?
Because young Nudy is a disciple of the other guys that we're naming. It's like if you're an understudy to the understudy, like that's even less unique. You know what I mean? So it's like that's kind of an example of how like not unique he is. Yeah. Because I think to us, we think of Young Nudy as Young Nudy. To the untrained ear, there's someone hears Young Nudy and they go, oh, this is so and so, this is so and so, this is so and so, and we can admit Young Nudy is a disciple of the ones before him. So when you're a disciple of the disciple.
Okay.
Yeah. Not great.
Make sure you say that to everybody whose music resembles Drake, who is a disciple of Kanye West.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
But yeah, so I think it's a 6 out of 10. Production, really fucking good.
Yeah.
Vocals, they're solid.
Yes.
Hooks, hit or miss. Songwriting, swinging the bat, not hitting a lot of balls. I'm gonna be honest with
you. yeah. It's looking like Jordan playing for the Chicago minor league team.
Yeah.
But there are some good things happening on this project.
Very playlistable.
Very playlistable. I don't know that he's ready to go into the Yeet NBA Youngboy zone. I think he deserves another shot.
Yeet is not in the NBA Youngboy zone, bro. I'm telling you he's not.
Anytime Yeet drops again, we're doing a poll. He does not get grandfathered in.
Yeet is too important. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it afterwards. I'm like, Yeet is just too important to
you.
Just in general. I think Yeet is probably one of the more important hip-hop figures right now.
We've reviewed him enough. If you want to hear our Yeet reviews.
He drops you know what the thing is? He drops music eternally.
That's what I said. Next time he drops, we'll do a poll and the people tell us how important he is. But let us know in the comments. I know you guys heard a bunch of names on this.
How many times have we reviewed Future?
Say it again?
How many times have we reviewed Future? We probably reviewed Future the same amount of times as Yeet, actually.
I would say Future is much more important than Yeet, and I don't think it's that close.
I just think Yeet is important too.
No, Yeet is also important, but not for us to review, you know.
I disagree. Let's continue. See, this is how this is sad for the SahBabii review, bro. This is sad for SahBabii.
No, I was gonna say we've named everyone else. Like I'm sure we've named more people in the same amount of times we've mentioned his name.
Yeah.
On this one, but listen, all the super hardcore SahBabii fans.
This reminds me of our Lil Skies review.
Oh my gosh, that's a throwback.
Remember the Lil Skies review?
Yeah.
Where
I think he got close to the same score for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
All you super fans of SahBabii, show up in the comments. Let us know what you think. Find us on the interwebs at Album Mode Pod on Twitter, Album Mode Pod on TikTok, Album Mode Pod on Instagram. Leave us a rating and a review on all your podcast platforms. 5 stars, not a single star less. And of course, subscribe on YouTube. Like this video, leave a comment, and until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Later days.